Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody who is just so excited to potentially go down to the U.S. To go to school. When I was growing up, I had an older brother who I idolized, and I wanted to do absolutely everything that he did. And he ended up going on a swimming scholarship down to Texas, to TCU. And because he did that, I wanted to do that. But to start the story, we grew up as swimmers, and I grew up following him around the neighborhood, doing everything he did, and he started to play ice hockey. And so I asked my parents if I too could play ice hockey, and they were not hockey people, so they didn't realize that, 35 years ago in Winnipeg, where I grew up, it was unacceptable for girls to play hockey. So we went to my local community center, and they signed me up as Sam Small, because that's my name. There was no box to check that said male or female. And that was the start of my hockey career. I played boys AAA hockey all the way through in Winnipeg, dreaming of playing in the NHL like most of my teammates. And my favorite player, he played for the Winnipeg Jets. I'm a huge Jets fan. My favorite player was Lori Boschman. And I thought Lori was a girl. I didn't know that girls didn't play in the NHL. So once I started to have that realization, I started to have all these other dreams and aspirations. And my brother and I were Olympics junkies because we did grow up in a swimming family. So we would watch the other athletes on TV, the opening and closing ceremonies, and we would make these podiums at home out of our furniture, and we'd present ourselves with medals, and we'd dream that someday we could be there. I didn't know how, I didn't know what sport I was going to do, but I wanted to be at the Olympic Games because it just represented all the ideals that I really lived for. So like I said, I played all these different sports and was lucky enough to get a scholarship to throw the discus and javelin down to Stanford University. Now, that's maybe not the story that you're going to expect to hear from a three-time Olympic ice hockey player, but life takes so many different twists and turns, and it's going to be no different for all of you guys. You're going to have some hopes and you're going to have some dreams, but as long as you're passionate about what you're doing each and every day, you're going to end up exactly where you need to be. So I accepted a scholarship to Stanford to throw the discus and javelin. I used to be super proud to tell people that I went to school with Tiger Woods. Like, I'm not super proud anymore, but it was an amazing institution to be at. We had Chelsea Clinton there while I was there. It was just an amazing place to be. Initially I was pre-med. I thought I was going to be a doctor because that's what smart people do. I volunteered at the local hospital, and I realized that it really needed to be my passion. And I also loved sports, so I actually ended up in engineering. However, while I was at Stanford, women's hockey was introduced as an Olympic sport for the first time ever. And I remember hearing that news thinking, that's exactly where I want to be. I wanted to go to the Olympics, and I love the sport of hockey. So I was playing men's club hockey at Stanford at the time, while also doing track and field. And I mean, it sounds cool. I played men's hockey in college, but let's be honest, nobody goes to California to play hockey. So it was kind of a glorified men's rec league team, but I loved it. And so I tried out for that very first women's Olympic hockey team that would be traveling to Nagano, Japan. And I ended up making the team as a third string goalie. And I was just so excited. I was a rookie on the team. Our team had a ton of pressure on us to win. I mean, this was the Olympic Games. This is Canada, after all. However, sport, like life, doesn't always turn out the way we want it to. And we ended up against a hard-fought American team in the final, and we ended up losing the game. Now, we stood on the blue line, and we sat there in disbelief, like, this is not the way it's supposed to happen. 9 times out of 10, we would have beaten the Americans. But on that day, we lost that game, and we just wanted a do-over. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you just want to redo that moment. You want to redo that situation. And we knew we couldn't for 4 more years. We had to watch the other team celebrate, throw their gloves in the air. We stood in the blue line as they presented us with silver medals. It's the last thing we wanted. A lot of people had tears in their eyes, others just stoically staring straight ahead. Others just ripped it off as soon as they got it. It was the last thing they wanted. There wasn't really much said in the dressing room after the game. It was very somber. But the next morning, our coaches took us out to watch some of the other athletes compete at the Olympic Games. And in cheering on our fellow Canadian athletes, we soon realized that we had a silver medal from the Olympic Games. Like, we were second best in the whole entire world. If you can imagine being second best in the whole entire world at something, that was us. So we did become proud of our accomplishment. We became proud of how we had represented this country and the work that we had put in. So we wore our silver medals with pride back to Canada. We landed in Canada, and the front pages of the newspapers read, Team Canada is a disgrace. Team Canada has let the entire country down. Now, you read that kind of stuff in the sports pages a lot about athletes, usually about the Toronto Maple Leafs, but it is true. You read that about your local athlete, and you forget that they're a real person with a real family, with real emotions. They said things like, we didn't work hard enough, we didn't try hard enough, we didn't want it bad enough. I mean, who doesn't want their dream bad enough when they're that close to it? However, because we went through that together as a team, we decided for the next 4 years we would do absolutely everything it took. So that come Salt Lake City, we would stand up on that podium and we would have the gold medals placed around our necks. Now, 4 years is a long time. If you think about where your life was 4 years ago, think about what grade you're in, what you guys were doing. Now think about where your life is going to go in 4 years, what you're going to be doing, the experiences you're going to be having. So much excitement. It's no different for us as Olympic athletes. I ended up graduating from Stanford with a degree in mechanical engineering and had to decide basically whether to accept a high-paying job in the Silicon Valley, like most of my classmates at the time, or move to Canada, play hockey full-time for basically no money. Now, my parents didn't really understand that decision. They said, you're getting a job, right? And I remember sitting them down and I said, I have this dream. We have this dream of winning this gold medal. And my parents, with big smiles on their faces, they looked right back at me and they said, you know, we decided long ago that we're going to support you no matter what. Not financially anymore, so good luck. So there I was, suddenly on my own. I decided to move to Toronto because there was an elite women's hockey team here, and was suddenly thrust into the #1 starting position as a goaltender. So I got to be the goalie playing in the big games, making a difference for Canada. And I'd like to say I got there because I pushed myself and I persevered and I worked really hard. I mean, I certainly did all of that, but it really helped that the starting goalie, she got pregnant. It doesn't really happen in the NHL very often, but she ended up starting a family, and the second goalie ended up retiring. So there I was, suddenly the starting goaltender for Canada. We won 3 straight world championships. So every non-Olympic year, we have a world championship. So going into the Olympics in Salt Lake City, we had a ton of confidence that we could beat the Americans on their home soil in front of their home crowd. Now, how it works for hockey in this country, for women's hockey, is basically about 30 women from across the country are asked to move to Calgary for the whole entire year leading up to the Olympic Games. It's called centralization. Girls from 17 all the way up to women in their 40s are asked to do this. Some are in high school, some have kids and family and married. So you have to figure out what to do. There's a lot of sacrifices to make. You're not allowed to work. You're not allowed to go to school. You have to leave your friends and family behind. And I say sacrifices, but what I really mean are choices. These are choices that we are making for this dream, just like they're choices that you guys are making for your dreams. Now, we all moved to Calgary. The training is pretty tough. The hardest thing about that is that 30 women are asked to do all of that, but only 20 get to go to the Olympic Games. So along the way, people are cut. The coaches are never telling you when that's going to happen. Just suddenly the stall beside you is cleared out, that person's dream and is over, and they're on the way home. And it was really hard in those moments for us to re-gel, to reconnect with each other. It was hard not to be angry at the people making the decisions. It was hard not to be angry at the people left in your friends' spots. And so it was hard for us to kind of become a team. Also, throughout that year, the coaches organized 8 exhibition games for us against our main rivals. So these games were against the Americans in all the major North American rinks. And what was so special about these games is 17,000 people would jam into the arena to cheer for women's hockey. As a little girl, I would have never thought that that could have been possible, but there we were, a part of history. These games were intense. We wanted to win. The first one, it was close. But that's what we lost by just a goal. Not a big deal. Back to the drawing board. The coaches retweaked some things. They changed our lineups up. We went to the second game a month later, even more prepared. We lost again. No big deal. They changed our training regimens. We looked at nutrition, sports psychology, everything it took for us to be the best that we can be. The third month, we went into the third game, and we lost again. And again, and again, and again. We did not win one single game the whole entire year. So now not too many people believed that we could possibly win a gold medal, but we believed. People always ask me, how did you guys have so much confidence when you lost every single game the whole entire year? And I really truly believe that sometimes in failure is when you learn the most about yourselves, but it's also when you learn the most about the people around you. How do they react to these situations? Do they need a shoulder to cry on? Do they need a kick in the pants? What is it that they need to be the best that they can be, and how can I support them to be the best that they can possibly be? I could honestly sit in the dressing room before the final game and look at each and every person and know they had become the absolute best hockey players that they could be. They weren't the best hockey players in the whole entire world. They were just the best that they could be. And that's all you can ask of yourself, and that's all you can ask of the people around you, is you be the best that you can possibly be on that day. Now, for myself as a goaltender, the coaches sat me down the night before the final game, and they said, Sammy Jo, we're going to be starting Kim St. Pierre, the other goaltender in tomorrow's final. And I remember staring back at the coaches in disbelief, thinking, this is not the way my dream is supposed to end. I'm supposed to be playing in the big game. And I just didn't know what to do. I got up from that meeting. I knew their decision had been made. I walked down to the athletes' village, tears streaming down my face, feeling like a failure. My parents were there to watch. I had friends there to watch. I wasn't going to get to play in the Olympic final. I was mad, I was angry, I was sad, I was everything you possibly imagine when your dream is taken away from you mere moments before it's about to happen. And I just didn't know who to turn to. Some of my best friends were on that team. I didn't want to burden them the night before the gold medal game. And so I wandered around that village feeling really sorry for myself. And I realized probably 3 or 4 hours later that I had two choices. One, I could feel the exact same way the next day, because I don't think you become an elite athlete unless you want to be the go-to person at the go-to moment. However, I knew that I couldn't feel that way the next day because my teammates needed me to feel a different way. They needed me to make the second choice. And the second choice was to play my role to the best of my ability. Now, it wasn't a role I wanted to play. Who knew I was training for 25 years to be the best possible cheerleader in the whole entire world? But every sport that I had played, every endeavor that I had done, every interaction I had had in my entire life had prepared me for that moment. And so that morning, I decided to put a big smile on my face. I put my emotions aside and said, I'll deal with those later. For that day, I was there for my teammates. And it wasn't easy, but all of you guys are going to go through situations that are not always easy. And you don't always get to choose the role you play, but you always get to choose how you play it. So I cheered as loud as I possibly could. I filled their water bottles. I did whatever it took to help them be the best that they could be, so that as I sat and I cheered and the final buzzer went off, I looked up and we had won. We were Olympic champions. I jumped over the boards. I jumped on top of Kim St. Pierre because she really played an amazing game that day for us and really won it for us. And I remember being in the big melee at the end and not thinking about me, but thinking about us and how we had become Olympic champions together. And as they came down the blue line this time, presenting my friends with gold medals right in front of me, they presented me with a gold medal. And this is the medal that they presented me with. It doesn't come in a Crown Royal bag, just so you know. But they put this medal around my neck, and I'm going to be over there signing autographs afterwards. You guys can come and see it. It's pretty special, but I looked down at it and I realized that it didn't matter what role you played. Each and every person got this exact same gold medal. Whether you scored the big goals or you made the big saves or you cheered as loud as you possibly could. So it made me realize that you don't always get to choose the role you play, but you always get to choose how you play it. And how you play your role really does matter, not only to your success, but really to the success of the people around you. So continue to play your roles with positivity, always looking to help others, because that's how we really flourish as a society. Thank you guys so much.